There we go. We're live now. This is
That's
odd
great.
because we're pre-recording. For the benefit of the audience who are watching this on Sunday, wondering why it's not really quite live, family stuff. So pre-recording, just to make Sunday family time. That's enough. You don't need any
But
more.
also, we are alive, so that's
Well, we
that's
are
a
alive.
plus.
Yes, yeah, we are hopefully still alive on Sunday when this is going out. If we're not, then it might not go out. Depends on when we're no longer
So
alive. But we
we
are
can
currently
assume
live.
that we are alive.
Yes, we are currently live. Which is
unless
kind of
between
the
now
same
and the
thing.
end of this recording, I can come up with some kind of like dead man switch thing that just automatically posts it anyway.
That would be a dead man switch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I've got an overall stop the screens button.
So we have to figure out who of us gets to hold the thing that, when you let go, triggers the upload.
I think it's just Andy's mouse button if he just hovers it over the record.
Yeah, mouse button. Yeah, it's a bit tricky. I seem to have lost my mouse, my spare mouse. Yeah, I'm using it.
Run off the desk again.
Yes, I had it the other day. So I'm not sure somebody's walked off with it. It's a pretty rubbish mouse anyway. It's the one that was in the Tinker Reach, and it's pretty icky.
Well, that's why I keep a cable on mine.
Well, it is a cable one. It is a cable one, but the cable's untouched, so it's like a tail.
That's a tricky case.
It was unplugged. Yeah, it was unplugged because I'm using a laptop. And yes, I couldn't find it. Which is one of the reasons why I was a bit of a delay getting the startup link to you all. But the audience don't need to hear that.
Yeah, I was going to say it's not like we've gone live too late or anything.
Yeah, but if we want them to, they'll hear it anyway.
Well, I could also upload it for 9:33 or something on Sunday.
He's already edited this bit out anyway.
Maybe
that was some great editing work, by the way.
Or added some extra things in. Yeah. Maybe I've been playing with After Effects. You're going to have to watch on Sunday just to find out.
I didn't know that After Effects could add weight too.
Yeah, I think After Eights can. Yeah, the wafer thin mint. Yeah.
The best part of the creative suite.
Well, that'd be nice.
Yeah, that's
Adobe
After Effects, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, Adobe should send, at the amount they charge, they should send out a monthly supply of chocolate. I think that would increase their subscription.
Definitely.
People that would subscribe would definitely go up.
It would increase other numbers too.
Yeah. I think it was the QWERTY, the t-shirt people would always send a little pack of Haribo.
They do.
With all the t-shirts, yeah.
I know from experience.
Yeah, I can't remember whether this was QWERTY or Loot Crate. I can't remember, but
for the benefit of the audio listeners, Jamie and Dominic are showing off their t-shirts.
Yes. Nerd shirts.
I think a number of there's quite a few companies that supply kind of a packet of Haribo or something when you buy. I think
we are being sponsored by those, aren't we?
Yeah. I try. Yeah, so far I've not heard anything back from Shaper about kind of sponsorship after giving them a shout out the other week.
Or free.
And here we wanted to get in shape.
Round is a shape. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, the origin. You could definitely lose weight with the Shaper Origin. Yeah.
Yeah.
Might be a bit quick.
I don't want to think too hard about that.
Yeah.
No.
Personal augmentation.
Yeah. It'd be interesting to see if routers, certainly a large router is probably one of the scarier tools in a workshop.
I would disagree.
Okay, go on.
I think a light router is a scarier tool because it's easier to get away. The big router, if it picks up speed, okay, I'm with you. But until then, you got a lot to hold it down. The lighter, smaller handheld kind, that's easier to escape your grasp.
See, the IT nerd in me is wanting to make the terrible, terrible, terrible joke about there's no threat with them whatsoever because we know that
All they
2.4
do is
gigahertz is
connect.
perfectly safe.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. But the linguistic nerd in me is going, no, it's a router, not a router. So I can't make that joke.
Yeah.
You mean spinema thingy, scary,
So-
noisy, whizzy machines that
Thingy,
remove
scary.
material?
Yeah.
Question is, which tool would you pick if you have a route to route?
Ooh. It would be a router, yeah. Mostly because we don't get dado stacks over here generally. We can, but
Yeah.
and
Although-
chisels.
Yeah.
Frankly, I've never been scared by a router. I shouldn't say scared, but I have respect for my table saw, for the miter saw, for those big spinny things. But the router, maybe I was never really introduced to that kind of damage. But
I had a bit come out of a 1/2-inch router once.
okay, that would
was
do
a
it. I
little
think.
bit scary.
Yeah.
That was a bit scary. Where you've got kind of your 3 inches of 1/2-inch straight flute flying across your yard,
Yeah,
and then bouncing off the kind of sort of side of the
definitely do
tinkerage, come back at you. Yeah. I was like,
I've had a few close calls where I've made grooves that started to get deeper as I went along. And then
I've had that as well.
Okay.
sort of realised just before it became a problem and went, oh, hang on a minute, that's not meant to be doing that.
Yeah. I had when I first had it, I had a few issues. The collet didn't always want to tighten up. There was a few moments. Yeah.
Yeah, I think
kind of moments.
I had those moments with the table saw, kind of let's say, mild kickback that alerts you to the idea, but doesn't do
Wakes
any
you up
damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I got lucky with the router. I do have a lot of respect for the bandsaw, though. I think
The
that's
bandsaw's a very, very worthwhile thing to have a lot of respect for, given that was exactly what it was designed to do.
Yeah.
yeah.
We've retrospectively made it do woodwork.
I think it's this lost for words for a moment. 1 second, I'll find them. There they are. I think it's this kind of false safety sense with the bandsaw because, well, there's the blade. It doesn't go anywhere. It's small, but if you get hit, you don't want to get hit.
I like a bandsaw. And I'd like.
Yeah.
I mean, I've only got a small. I've used a floor size jet standing one. Yeah, big table. It was lovely. Really enjoyed using that. I've only got a small, cheap work zone. All the cheapest one, the one with the tin plate table. It's okay. I had an old Black and Decker before that, which was missing the lower blade guides, and that was a bit interesting. Kind of here, because the blade wouldn't always stay straight.
Was that one of the 3-wheel ones?
Yeah, 3-wheeler.
My dad's got one of them.
And I like a bandsaw, and yes, I treat it with respect, but I've never. The only scary moment I've had with a bandsaw is when I can't remember what it was now, but I was cutting something and the blade caught on the material. I'm pretty sure it was wood, and stopped. And the motor was still going. It just got wedged, and I think that was. Yeah, I was trying to probably cut something that was just a bit too hard with something that was a bit underpowered. So that was a little bit kind of annoying. I had a blade snap once. That was a little bit of a surprise.
It's also kind of a wake-up moment.
I was going to say, that'll wake you up, yeah.
It wakes you up, but it's quite a safe wake up. You don't, because of the nature of a bandsaw, you don't generally get bits flying off, ripping skin off.
True.
I'm now very wary of. As I've mentioned before, I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to get rid of my table saw. Haven't used it in 6 years, and I probably the last time I used it, I wasn't comfortable.
Yeah,
and so if I'm not comfortable using it, it's got to go. It's simple as that. It is too dangerous. I mean, I trained on. I say trained. training was loose. When I was working in the industry before I was a teacher, we
You
had
got
a couple of
experience
giant.
on.
Yeah, we had
Mm.
one was 10 or 12 inch. It was 12-inch blade on the smaller wadkin, and the other one was something like a 16-inch blade, and that was a big, huge carriage table saw. But we would,
That's
yeah, I
what
was sometimes cut
300 mil up to
300 mil to
420.
yeah, about that, and that we were getting really close. There were no push sticks. It was just dodgy as hell. There was no riving knife. It was
That reminds me of
scary.
when I started out. I had a cheap little table saw, and I think I had done a few cuts by that time, but it was okay. It was a new tool, so yeah. But then the guy I learned beekeeping from, which is a tangent we don't need to go onto, but he's been doing it for I think 50 years, and he had, I have to say, a big table saw, 3-phase, and I think it also had a planer attached. These work center type things, and I needed to cut a board, a thicker one, and at an angle. But it was I think these days I would use a what's the brandless name for a skill saw? The
Circular saw?
handheld circular saw.
Circular
Yes.
saw, yeah.
But back then he asked whether I wanted to do it on his big saw, and I said yes. Okay, what could go wrong? Nothing did go wrong, but I was standing there at the saw, cutting this board. There was no riving knife, no fence that I could use, and he said, "Yeah, just push it through." And I think going from that kind of stress to using a normal small table saw is what made me more comfortable with the small saw, because I thought it can't be as bad as what could have happened with a big one.
Yeah.
Which is probably, looking back, not the best mindset, but it worked out all right.
Yeah, that's exactly the route I took, but I'm just not fit enough now to use a table saw safely. And if you can't use a machine safely, or if you're not confident to use a machine safely, whether that's because of lack of training or whether that's because of some physical need that means you can't operate it safely, then you shouldn't. Basically, in
That's
my
true.
opinion, a track saw.
Agreed,
I mean, pretty much everything I can do on a table saw, I can do with a track saw, and that is much more manageable because I don't tend to do big sheets. If I order any big sheet supply, not that I have for ages, or something like that, I would probably get them cut down by the supplier. Just because that's easier to do, it's easier to handle them. Then a track saw just makes everything so much more accessible.
Yeah, and I think the difference as well then is you place the workpiece down and you move the saw on the workpiece rather than trying to manhandle a big lump of wood on something that's fighting back at you. It's a more sensible approach for any kind of flat sheet goods stuff, I think.
I don't use my track saw that often, but I think there's reduced risk of kickback too. So if you got the saw in hand and you push it, and I'm trying to remember whether the saw ever pushed back, but
so I have had my track saw do that, and it jumped up off the track.
Okay.
So I have a nice gouge scar on the track. That was my track saw wake up moment.
A lot of those to go around, apparently.
Yeah, that was fun.
I've had a little bit of kickback off the track saw, but it was early enough. And on my track saw there's an anti-kickback feature, which I think I might actually have turned off because it does make it a bit harder to use. Adds a bit more resistance to it.
That's safety features for you.
Yeah, I've had kickback once off just a conventional circular saw. That was a little bit scary. But again,
especially because it's a big thing you're holding in your hand as well. I think that's the problem. If it's a big machine that stays put, and gives you kickback, then yeah, you've got a bit of workpiece coming back at you. But when you're holding the thing that's spinning and shouting at you,
yeah,
it's a bit different. I
especially
bought
if it's
back when I first started getting into like the woodworking stuff, I bought one of the Evolution circular saws, but I bought the really, really big, ridiculous one that they've got. And it's on a recommendation from a friend of mine. I've never actually used it. I bought it with the intention of using it, and they sent the wrong one. Because they sent the cheaper one, which was just the little tiny handsaw one, and I use that fairly often, but still haven't ever used the big ridiculous one. I've sort of like handed it off to several friends over the years for them to use for flooring projects and things.
Is that this beam saw? I think this with the ridiculously large blade.
It's not quite that big, but it's a big heavy monster of a saw. It's it's one that you can quite safely use two hands and lean onto, but it's not quite a beam saw. But
So
compared to something that's easy to just use one-handed, it's
since Halloween is coming up, can I say it cuts heads but not torsos?
pretty much.
It's a good
Great for
distinction.
opening up rib cages, but you're safe from.
The spine is safe.
Yeah.
depends which side you start on. Yeah.
But I just remembered something. Speaking of kickback, are you guys familiar with Destin from Smarter Every Day?
Yeah.
They did I just seeing the title here, Circular Saw Kickback Killer. They did apparently a project or something about that a while back, and now that I remember it, yeah, okay. No idea why I said circular saws don't have kickback.
That was a really good video, actually. So it's a good one.
Yeah.
I mean, they do definitely kick back. Anything spinning can kick back or give the equivalent to kickback, even if it's a different type of spinning device.
Especially for something like a circular saw, all you need is to go offline, and that's gonna
or if you try and don't start correctly. Don't let it get up to speed before you push it into the machine.
What we're saying is it's mostly user error.
Probably is. Very few saws are malicious.
Yeah. I would say that there's quite a few like hand saws that are pretty malicious. No matter how good your technique is, when we've all done that where you're trying to rip through a board, and the saw just sort of bends and flexes and throws you off in another direction.
Big problem with a push saw. Yeah. Western style saws, they like to do that. I like it. I've got to admit, I like a nice bow saw. No good for kind of fine woodworking.
You can nice dovetails with it.
A good workout. But come to think of it, I think the tool that injured me the most is the orbital sander.
Okay.
I mean, I never had a really serious wound in the shop, but the orbital sander...
Did it fall off a high shelf and hit you on the head or something? Or?
No, there were other things that did that, but those don't qualify as power tools. My case is usually I have a board and I want to sand the small side, and these days I try to either stack other boards against it or use clamps or something, but I used to just wing it and then try to get this and would sand over my hand, and those are not pretty. Although the fingers are still attached, so I should be thankful for that.
Yeah, I think so.
I think I've been okay with sanders generally. I think I caught a nail on a belt sander a couple of times when you're trying to sort of
fingernail or
fingernail. Yeah.
We both had the same idea there, Dominic.
Yeah, caught a fingernail on belt sanders a couple of times when you're trying to do small bits. I've had more issues with doing something maybe like with
putting the sander on the workpiece.
if you got something really small, then that will just go spinning. Yeah. Or if you're trying to get into sanders are part of the carving. Yeah, the way I carve when I do stuff. Yeah, it's kind of hybrid carving, I can't call it. Yeah, so some bits get done with knives, some bits get done with drills and power tools of some sort, and some of it gets sorted out with power sanders.
Is this where we get towards a discussion on correct tool for the job kind of thing?
If all you have is a hammer?
Everything looks like
everything's a nail. yeah, hammer, yeah, hammered thumbs a couple of times.
Yeah. Those are...
I think that's part of the learning process for hammers, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's the hard part about trying to get your kids involved. They need to make mistakes, but how do you decide which mistakes are
with the kids and the hammers, that's easy. You get them to hold the nail first, and you use the hammer.
That only works once.
I think for hammering nails, though, I think it's very much the same as like sharing snacks among your friends or your family. You know, it's like one for you, one for me, one for you, one for me, in terms of like swinging the hammer and nail, thumb, nail, thumb. You know?
It's a good philosophy.
I'm using them wrong. Yeah.
I think it's when you try to use. I think my issue is something here. You're using the wrong hammer for the job. Again, wrong tool for the job. Yeah, you're trying to
sledgehammers and carpet tacks.
Well, I was thinking kind of a claw hammer and a carpet tack, or a brad. Yeah, rather than getting the kind of the nice small hammer. Just claw hammer's close. That'll do. I'm gentle.
I mean, it looked cool in the movies when they did the hammer thing on the railway spikes. So.
Yeah. I mean, you always see these people, you know, several swings to knock a nail in. So surely if you just get a bigger hammer, it's fewer swings.
That's efficiency.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you tried that as well.
Steve starts shouting at the screen.
Dents in the wood when you miss. Yeah.
Well, that's the trick, isn't it? You just start it off very gently. You hold the hammer up by the head and just like knock the nail so it's kind of standing, and you can remove your fingers, and then take a good old swing. And then
you need another person to move the piece so you hit properly.
Yeah. Maybe you see the guys who do like the sort of AI controlled, well, not AI, but the electronically controlled, you know, the like Mark Rober with his bowling ball or the dartboard. Exactly. Maybe you need the same thing with like yeah. So you put some tracking cameras on a workpiece on a movable platform, and then every time you swing your hammer down, it will move the workpiece so that the nail is underneath the hammerhead. Surely that's going to be the perfect project for some wonderful nerd makers out there.
But I think you could take it a step further. You have a hammer with a attachment that kind of shoots the head out in the direction of the nail. So you have to hit this big around the nail.
Maybe this is how we get Shaper Origin.
I just thinking the same thing. Yeah.
If we have a hammer that's got the frame around it and the camera in the hammerhead, and as you swing the hammer down, it moves the hammerhead into where the nail is. Maybe that's the approach we take, rather than moving the workpiece.
And then the shaper carves a hole where you put the nail in.
Pre-drilling all your nails. A 2-stage hammering. That's quite an interesting concept, actually. It's like the first, you know, if you place the hammer on the workpiece and it pre-drills where the nail should be, deposits the nail into the kind of the start hole, and then you just lift it up and swing it back down again, and it moves the hammerhead underneath. That could be quite.
Then there'll be some trolls. There'll be some trolls in the comments complaining why you didn't use a screw.
Yeah, maybe an automatic screw would be a better plan.
Well, you can get pneumatic nailers, and I don't mean kind of nail guns that feed. but literally
the
palm driver one. So you put it over the
I
nail,
think for
press the button,
roofing
Yeah,
and
or
such.
just push it in. Yeah.
I do have one for my AEG multi-tool type thing. It's got a hammer, like the idea being for getting into tight spaces and things, and it's just like a rotary thing that just hits the hammerhead down, which is quite fun if you need to get into somewhere. You've got about maybe 80, 90 mil of clearance.
That's small.
I also wonder, you can get the pneumatic denailer for kind of getting rid of the sort of pallet. I wonder if you used maybe oval nails rather than headed nails. I wonder if you kind of could use it to actually put a nail in.
I wouldn't fancy holding that and.
I was kind of thinking that it would go into the you'd put it into the
I fit it into some kind of chamber rather than trying to just hold it with your fingers.
It has it. The denailer has a chamber.
So
you put the end of the pallet nail that's sticking out, the pork bit, you put that over, pull the trigger, and it shoots the nail out the other side. So if you reverse the nail into the nozzle, put it against the wood, pull the trigger,
an anti-backwards nail
out the other side.
Hello and welcome to Terrible Tool Talk.
Well, I think those are some great ideas. Yeah, we're hitting the hammer on the nail on the head.
We need to go for the full-on Futurama thing here with the particular episode of Futurama where Fry has two nails and he's trying to then use a nail to knock a nail in instead of using a hammer. I think that's.
Don't know whether I've seen that one, but I need to watch those again.
If you've got one very large nail and one very small nail, you possibly could.
And if you got the right sponsorships, you put the one nail in and take a Shaper Origin and...
So does that? I wonder if that phrase holds true then. If all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Is the reverse true? If all you have is nails, everything is a hammer?
I would say if all you have are nails, then you're screwed. But that's,
nailed it.
I'd say the joke's on point. Yeah.
So now that we've completely alienated all of our listeners,
that's something for everyone.
Yeah, I could have perfectly used Nalienate then.
Why didn't you?
The spark happened about half a second after I'd said Alienate.
Yeah, I was thinking because you mentioned Futurama, which I still haven't seen, whether or what the workshop of the future will look like.
Terrible.
I suspect there will still be people who will go, yeah, fully hand tools, no power tools. There'll still be people who want to do that because people like to do that sort of thing.
Probably, yeah.
Is it going to be, something like, oh, look at Grandad's doing a woodworking project. He's got his laser CNC again. God, him and his old tools. Yeah.
Well, I think there will be that as well. Yeah. And there'll be other people going, yeah, let's just. I mean, I'm assuming we're not to the point of maybe Star Trek. Press a button, state what you want, and it appears out of some unit. But will we have the laser bandsaw as predicted by the team on making it many years ago?
I think that would be a laser cutter, but
where you move the material yourself.
A static beam, and you
move the board.
That would be terrifying.
Yeah. Well, I think it's basically just going to be some kind of Jedi maker, isn't it? Who's just made a bandsaw frame and just docked his lightsaber into the top to start, do a bit of woodwork in the off season.
Jedi Maker just got me thinking of a person meditating in their shop, floating in the air, and all the tools are doing whatever. That would be pretty safe, I imagine.
They need more force, and then a lot of clamps sort of lift off the wall.
Is there 1-phase and 3-phase when it comes to force powers?
Yeah, can a Jedi team up with another Jedi to kind of boost their output?
Would it be like the single phase power tools are just the Sith, and then the kind of the full Jedi armada for your 3-phase power?
But I think the Sith take the quicker route, the easier route. Does that mean they take a router?
This is just going to be an episode of trying to shoehorn as many puns and dad jokes in as possible.
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
So far.
No, not at all. Just pre-warning everyone else, really.
I think they already know.
Yeah.
But what you said about the... Sorry?
I was going to say, just thinking about, trying to get maybe a little bit more serious, but thinking about tools.
How dare you?
What's the tool that you would most like to have in your workshop that you haven't currently got?
Is it okay if I name a tool that I have, but that I haven't managed to get working yet?
Yeah, a working version of would be. Yeah, I think that would be acceptable.
That would be the laser or the laser cutter, engraver, whatever. I haven't managed to align the mirrors right because they were aligned, and I thought I'd buy a set of better ones, which was stupid.
You upgraded until you broke it.
Yeah, that I did. But that's probably the dream tool right now, the next attainable goal. At least if it works the way I imagine, drawing something up in 2D and then having a bit of Death Star going and be done with it. But I doubt it'll be that easy.
Yeah, I like that idea. I think that's a cracking idea. I think it's definitely for me too would be laser. I think that would be it's got so much potential, I think. What, you, Jimmy?
Currently, I'm going to say me, because I don't seem to get in my workshop enough. So that would be the tool that should be in my workshop.
I was just about to say, you could say that you're a tool.
Yeah, exactly. But I can't imagine anyone would disagree with that. But no, the more I see and hear people with fiber lasers, the more I'm just itching to play with one.
Why? I mean, why a fiber laser?
Because it can do metal.
Yeah, but as far as I'm aware, it can't cut metal.
No, but you can engrave
yeah.
quite heavily.
Okay.
And it's very, very quick and looks cool. It looks as cool to me now as lasers did initially.
Well, I should say we have a fiber laser at work that I tried to use it on wood and it didn't work out that well. But we use it to basically to mark pieces, to add some numbers to them, but only on the very surface, no engraving. Because when we try to engrave, and that's on stainless steel, maybe that's a difference. You build up a lot of gunk, and you get what you want to engrave as kind of a pockmarked layer of gunk on there, but you don't get any depth. Maybe the laser isn't powerful enough. Maybe we're doing it wrong, but that's not the idea. That's not why we use it. So that's nothing that we explored. Yeah. But that got me thinking. If I want a laser, I want I think the CO2 laser The one that can do wood, that can cut wood, that can do interesting stuff by comparison. But that's just my experience.
Yeah, I mean, I have access to CO2 laser. So for me, the kind of the one I don't have access to is the fiber laser. Whereas I had a diode. Yeah, N+1 exactly. Yeah, for a long time I did want a Panther router because they just look really, really, really.
The manual one, or the the thing Matthias Wandel.
Correct.
Yeah. That.
Yeah, and then it was Kuldeep Singh.
The aluminium one.
The aluminium
or
version,
the metal one. I think I was thinking about these. You have some kind of gantry, and you have an image here and a router there, and you follow the image, and
a pantograph.
That's it.
Yeah, it's basically the same sort of principle.
Yeah,
same mechanism, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a matter of scale and structure.
Yeah. So I think I wanted one of those for a long time, but I think it's sort of at that point of I don't have that much need for the woodworking stuff these days.
Yeah.
You know, much like you, Andy, I've kind of packaged my table saw up recently because it wasn't being used. You know.
I think the Panther router is mainly used for joinery and such. I haven't seen a case of it's basically engraving or 3D carving something. I imagine it would work, but you have to have a small piece there for the follower to go on.
Yeah, exactly. It's purely aimed at being a joinery.
I think that would be interesting to print some kind of topography and then use it on the Panther router, but then you have a CNC basically. So
yeah, it would be more of a MeNC rather than a CNC, wouldn't it?
True. But kind of circling back to Andy, what you said about the workshop of the future. What I've been wondering recently, I don't know whether we still have it, but there's this sentiment of CNC or laser or 3D printing isn't really making because you're just pushing a button. I think we know that's not the case, especially if the tool isn't working right.
I think if anyone that's actually attempted it or has known someone close that has attempted it will know and will confirm that it is not just a case of pressing a button. I'm okay if there are people who just want to. We talked about this before. Yeah, if somebody produces a reliable print out of the box printer that will work for years with zero maintenance or minimal maintenance, snap off features, things that don't require the depth of work that most 3D printers still do. I think if people want to get something like that and use it, and I think that's potentially something for the future.
Those are available. Those are there. You can buy them, but they're the price of a car.
Yeah.
That's kind of the science fiction version where you are out there on a different planet, you need a tool and you hit a button and that tool gets printed. But I think we're quite a ways away from that.
Oh, they're in every home, and when it breaks down, you call out the maintenance engineer and they come and sort it out.
They'll come and replace the printer and sort that one out somewhere in the factory, probably.
Probably, yeah.
Put it in the back of another printer and it just grinds it down to become
printer filament.
Yeah.
But the caveat of that, what I was thinking, well, that idea, it's not really making. And I heard stories that back when the first power tools were invented, people said the same. So what will be the next thing where people say that's not really making? the next evolution in tools.
Yeah, I suppose something like, VR environments or something like that. It's. Well, I suppose we're there with that anyway, aren't we?
Yeah.
Someone's making a set of furniture to go into a metaverse chat room or something.
Yeah,
Is that
I
really
mean, it's
making?
undoubtedly already happening, not necessarily accessible
Yeah.
to the public, but undoubtedly happening.
Well, it's probably something akin to, I think, it's not just that, but SketchUp had these libraries of various tools, or basically Thingiverse, where you can make a model and upload it. And I've only brushed those, but there are, I think, pages, I can't think of a name, for where you can get models and graphics for computer games, for game design. These I'm not very articulate today. Articulated models. So I think I'm thinking, is that really something new? That where people say that's not art, because you have movies for 20 years with varying degree of believability of special effects, and so there have to be people who make these 3D models.
I don't know where. Well, I can't think of a thing that would be this is the next new thing, because if I could think of that thing, then I could be actually maybe getting a huge amount of money and developing it with somebody else, probably. But yeah,
neural interface, just
well,
like the Matrix. You plug it in, you think something, and the printer prints it.
I think it's about thinking. I mean, who knows whether that will become a thing? I'm sure Elon Musk wants us to. He's already sort of exploring sort of chip in brain technology.
Yeah, true.
I suspect that one of the main things that will happen to kind of home workshops of the near future, that we will be using machines that are currently available but are out of the range money-wise for most people. I mean, if we think about lasers have been around for a long time. I mean, I can remember school I was at getting one in 2002, and it was not particularly big. I mean, it was a big unit, but in terms of kind of cutting space, it was bigger than a K40. But it was £15,000 for a machine you can now buy the equivalent of for probably £1,500, maybe £2,000. So the price differentials be huge. I mean, that was bought because the school accessed a big pot of money and with a sort of a particular status that it had achieved. So it was able to buy that. But and more schools now have them because they are now a few £1,000s rather than tens of thousands of pounds. And I think the same thing will happen.
And you can get these small cubes that there's always advertisements on Instagram that, I mean, they don't look nice. You could say they have the eyesore included.
Danger cubes.
Yeah, exactly. But that's kind of a little bit of a worrying trend, I think. I mean, everyone can buy a 3D printer now, and the worst thing you can do is burn your finger if you touch it in the wrong place. But these lasers,
house down with the A8s that would come particularly prone to thermal runaway. But
yeah, true.
I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see kind of things like, I mean, obviously we've talked about the shape of origin, and I think things like that, machines with computers, will become more prevalent. So I can envisage that in maybe 10, 15, 20 years' time, you'll be able to get a table saw that will you feed in the piece of timber. You've said what you want dimension wise. It will possibly have a number of blades, and you'll feed it in. It'll be a chambered. You'll feed it in, and out will come at the other end your piece of timber with the tenons already cut, for example, and it'll be the correct length. and it will be machines that are currently available in, some timber yards have them in the UK.
Yeah.
Where literally you can put in a piece of timber, it programmed to go in, it will essentially has a spindle molder built in, it's got multiple blades, it will cut to length, it will cut tenons, and it just sends it through. And out at the other end comes your piece of wood ready to go into your piece of furniture.
I think that's the thing, though, isn't it? Is that kind of automation is there, but is prohibitively expensive for the home user.
Yeah.
But in the time frame that might become less prohibitively expensive and become part of the realm of possibility for the home shop. There is already the Mitosaur thing that's released that will, it's like a DRO that you can punch in the length of timber and it will adjust
trims
up and
the
down
end
on the track,
sends through another
for your chop saw and things. I wonder if in that time frame for the big stuff automation to come down in price to be sensible purchase, I wonder if something else will come along and overtake it instead.
What I think is interesting, you get a lot of these Kickstarters for combination machines. You have a laser and a CNC and a 3D printer all in one machine. You just have to replace a part, or maybe you don't have to. But I wonder whether these ever be feasible or productive, let's say, because I think they mainly look like, I don't want to say toys, but if you want if you want a good 3D printer, you buy a 3D printer. If you want to have a good laser, you buy a laser. These combination
the problem
machines
with them as well is they're almost mutually exclusive. You could really do with light, low inertia kind of framing for laser and 3D printing, but then you want stability, rigidity, and mass for CNC. So it's very easy to get a decent machine that does 3D printing and laser, because they're very similar machines in terms of what makes them good. But the second you bring the CNC into the mix, you either compromise and you have a crap CNC, or you have a decent CNC that's a crap laser and a crap 3D printer.
But would it be, money aside, if you have a solid CNC and you add a laser to it, would that be a crap laser?
The problem is that you need to be able to move the laser quickly.
Yeah.
So when you add mass and inertia to it, it reduces how good the laser can be.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean, it's entirely possible to do. If you increase the mass of everything in the whole structure, you could increase the motors as well.
If
so
money
it is a
isn't
money
an
no
issue.
object.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, you could stick some big, huge,
again, this
servo
the industrial
motors on or something.
It's the industrial model, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that's the thing, though, is things like CNC and laser and 3D printing in terms of desktop home user, kind of stuff. It's a race to the bottom in getting the cheapest viable machine and allowing the user to upgrade as they see fit. Whereas when you get to, proper industrial production type stuff, you can quite happily spend 20, 30, 40, 100 times what it would be for a desktop home machine for something that would be a monster.
Speaking of expensive tools, you didn't ask this, but I just want to mention it. I've been it's not the next thing I want in my shop. It's something I won't ever really want in my shop because I don't need it, but I really want to have it. It's these basically true color resin printers. These where you can that don't actually, you know what I mean. I saw it first on a site where you can design the miniatures for Dungeons and Dragons or something like that, and you can order it printed, completely colored. That kind of blew my mind.
It's like the powdered resin, and they inject like a normal
like an SLS type.
Yeah, like an SLS, but it's when you get the next layer of powder over the top, it will kind of hit it with a almost like an inkjet printer type head, flies over and drops color in, so that it's pigmented to what it should be, and then it's sintered and cured in place.
I wonder whether there'll ever be kind of a consumer model of that technology.
It is available. It's just prohibitively expensive for sensible people.
Yeah,
it probably will. I mean, the way the prices of lasers have gone down, the way the prices of 3D printers have gone down, I suspect. Yeah, I mean, I think with 3D printing, with filament-based 3D printing, they're already available. But I suspect that in 2 or 3 years, maybe 5 years' time, multicolor filament, dual, triple, quadruple filament printing will become quite normal and quite available.
Yeah, absolutely. And things like E3D's Tool Changer and Prusa's offering for their equivalent as well.
MMU.
Yeah, exactly. So the MMU for that's a kind of a bolt-on for the filament printer that will mix colors or filaments, I suppose. Whereas the Tool Changer will allow you to switch full heads out. So E3D's idea being that you could theoretically print something out and then get the head to switch to something like a CNC router head or a router head, and then mill a pocket into the thing that you've just printed, or smooth edges, or things like that.
I think it'll happen. I think that's
probably.
And I think the availability of different materials will happen. That's why I think there will be machines that will allow you, if you want to concentrate your making on creating a piece of furniture, but your emphasis is on design, and you don't want somebody else to do the making, but you want to have an element of control over the making, then a machine that will take your pre-designed pieces, cut them to suitable size, and then maybe another machine that will do the shaping. I think there will be options like that.
Yeah.
But the big question is stuff like that making. I would argue it is. It's just different.
You could argue that it's designing and that the machine does the making, but that's a kind of a mute point, I think. It's designing is making too.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
If something has been created. I mean, I'm of the kind of the thought that if you make a piece of music, yes, you're a musician, you're a composer, but you're also a maker. If you just play, I don't know if that would just make you a musician. I'm not sure if that makes you a maker.
You're
just playing somebody else's music, you're making sound.
I think that's the problem. Wouldn't call it a problem, but the thing with the term maker, you can apply it to almost anything. You can make noise.
It's inclusive enough that nobody's excluded.
Yeah,
and that's the way it should be. Yeah,
absolutely. True. I mean, you mentioned designing. Being a decision maker as a designer is absolutely making.
Yeah.
I said it before. Every one of us is a maker. We go and make a sandwich for lunch.
Yeah,
we've made decisions and we've made a sandwich.
Yeah,
it has to be a practical thing you do with your hands.
Adam Savage talks about it in fairly early on in Every Tool's a Hammer, about how somebody approached him after one of his Sunday sermons at one of the cons that he kind of always does, the San Francisco Maker Fair or Comic Con, whatever, and he did being a Maker Fair, and he did his sort of Sunday sermon, and everyone stands around and listens to him. And somebody approached him afterwards and said, it's nice being a maker. I'm not a maker. I'm a programmer. And so, you're a programmer. You're a maker. You're solving problems. You're getting something to happen that couldn't have happened without your input. You're creating something. You're a maker. And I think changing that attitude, it is difficult. We've talked so many times about the gatekeepers. You get people saying, "Oh, the famous furniture makers, if the Eames had access to the Shape or Origin, they wouldn't have used it because it's not a machine." It's like, yeah, right. And the Chippendale brothers making their furniture back in the 19th century, if they had access to some of the tools they had today, they'd have gone, yay!
Yeah, they would have explored them and seen where they can push them. Like they
blacksmiths and
did with
power
the tool they
hammers.
had.
Yeah, I can say with the rock,
I think the funny thing is those people saying, for example, a blacksmith with a power hammer, that's not the way to do it. You have to hammer it yourself. They don't want to pay the blacksmith the money they need to do it in the time it takes to hammer. They want the piece power hammered.
Yeah, I think as well. You get that kind of thing in almost everything. You get. I see it all the time in I used to run an IT consultancy, and the amount of times you'd get someone with a dead laptop or something, and they bring it to you and say, "Oh, this is broken. Can you fix it? How much will it be?" And you quote them a price, and they would go, "Oh, yeah, no, I'm not paying that much. I'll get the 14-year-old kid down the road to fix it." And then you go, "Okay, that's fine. I'll see you in a couple of weeks." And then it would come back, and they would go, "Can you fix it now, please? Because they tried and they failed." I go, "Yes, but the problem is I don't know what they've done, which it's now going to take me longer, so it's going to cost you more." But what you gave me this price before? Yeah, and I quoted you on what I knew before. If I quote you again, I now have to quote you for extra stuff. It's that kind of that's always a struggle. I think is people want the nice traditional ways of doing things, but don't want to pay the price of people who have experience and know what they're doing to do it.
Yeah.
It's part of the maker problem as well, though, isn't it?
It's that triangle of fast, cheap, and good. Pick two.
Yeah. Pick two, yeah.
I think there's another element to that as well, because in the maker community, we have people who, you go to a craft fair and there'll be two tables on opposite sides of the craft fair. One is somebody who is making their entire living from crafting. They're making things to sell. They will do custom pieces. They may do content as well. They may not. But their entire income is from making things. And opposite them, maybe doing exactly the same craft, maybe somebody who's been, let's say, example I've seen, a wood turner. They've been wood turning for 50 years. They are selling things that they've made, and they're very experienced. They're making fantastic pieces, and they're selling them for barely the cost of the material, because to them it's a hobby. And they go to these shows and they're selling it based on, well, yeah, that blocker would cost me £10. I'll sell it for £10 or I'll sell it for £11 because I've got to cover the cost of some finish as well. Maybe a piece of felt.
Cut £5 worth of wood out of it.
Yeah. Yeah, or they've made 2 bowls out of it. It's possible to do that. But they're selling it based on, it's just a hobby. I'm not trying to make a living out of this. If I can just have zero cost input, so I'm making enough to buy a new material, I can a little bit on each piece I can save up and buy a new chisel or new sharpening system. But actually, even if I didn't sell it, I'd still buy the new chisel, sharpening system, whatever, because it's my hobby and it's the thing that keeps me sane.
They have a day job.
And they don't. Maybe they have a day job, but maybe they're retired, and it's just they just want to get out, meet people, and the craft fair is the perfect opportunity to sit down and meet people, have people come to them saying, "Oh, isn't your work really nice? And it's so much cheaper than the guy over there."
Yeah.
So the price is an interesting one actually, because if one of your friends starts making something, a product to sell. There's kind of two approaches that I quite often see. Seeing as I'm your friend, can I have one for free to test the product, please? Or let me buy that from you because I can, instead of mates rates, let me buy that off you for full price. Don't try and give me mates rates because I would like to support you and see you succeed. It seems to be that like because they're a friend, let's try and get the thing for cheap, versus because they're a friend, let me try and support them.
Yeah, I think it depends on which came first, the desire to have the thing or being their friend.
Yeah, that's an interesting thought.
But I'm thinking in that example, the guy or the person who does it for enjoyment, basically. Can you fault them for doing that when the other guy struggles to make a living with it, or is it? I don't know. This was just a thought I had, but
the argument there is that if the person who's doing it to make a living is making a good enough product that warrants the price increase, or not the price increase, but it warrants the higher price being asked. It's that kind of striving for competition, isn't it?
But that means But that means the guy who does it for a living has to be exponentially better than the guy who just does it.
Absolutely.
Maybe the lot more experience and yeah.
And I think that's where the real frustration is. If someone is starting out and I've only been doing the craft for 2 years, say, and that's kind of that's the experience they've got, versus someone who's been doing the craft for 20 years and now doesn't have a job anymore, doesn't need the income anymore, and is doing it for fun.
And can afford to make mistakes, and
there is that huge gulf there, that sort of disparity of experience versus need for. Yeah,
does it also feed into that element we have in society now of wanting the thing as quickly as possible and as cheap as possible? Yeah, we're getting the Amazon effect. Yeah, you can order something very cheap from Amazon, gets delivered next day.
Yeah.
Or if you prefer to wait even longer, you order it from one of the sort of Chinese websites that you may have to wait 3 to 8 weeks, but you'll get it for 1/10 of the price.
And when you get it, you don't know what project you ordered it for. But that's kind of beside the point.
Well, that's the real benefit, because my friend and I coined a term, happy trash, for those kind of little, super cheap little gifts to yourself kind of thing. A couple of pound as that's a nice little new shiny thing, and then it becomes easier to get bigger, nicer little trinkets from somewhere like AliExpress or one of the other kind of super cheap Chinese retailer type places. And because of that delayed kind of thing, you get the kind of the dopamine hit of, I've just bought myself a nice treat. And then you get the surprise in a couple of months' time when something you've completely forgotten about turns up.
It's like Christmas, you get to open a package.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. Even if it's not for a project, it's, who bought me this? Oh, yeah, it was me.
What a nice guy.
Is good. Yeah.
Yeah. Although that kind of, I wouldn't say scares me, but when I look at a cheap product on Amazon, and basically, there have been times when I checked on those other sites, and I could get the same thing there. Basically, what if there's shipping on Amazon for what the shipping would have cost, or a fraction of the price. And I mean, I think Amazon has delivery centers pretty comparatively rather close to me, and then getting it from China halfway around the world is cheaper. There's something wrong with that. But
absolutely, it's subsidised shipping, isn't it? That's the thing.
yeah,
And shifting things in bulk as well.
Yeah,
true.
I mean,
That's why it
that's a
takes
real problem
weeks.
with
It makes
21st
sense.
century kind of living, isn't it? It's the things are cheaper than they should be, but we don't realise that. You know, we
It's
just kind of
hard
come
to
expect it.
it's hard to value cheap things.
Yeah,
We've become used to having choice. You take a supermarket, we're now used to pretty much being able to get whatever we want, whenever we want. So if we want strawberries in December, we can get strawberries in December. If we want
No,
sprouts in the summer, we can get sprouts in the summer. Some things can be a bit trickier. But the sprouts are cheaper in the winter and more available than they are in the summer. But you can
need them for
get
the
them.
extra warmth, the extra fuel to increase the fire.
I think there's no year-round supply of asparagus yet, but I think they're working on that one too.
Yeah,
That's not
asparagus is a tricky one, I think. Yeah. But I wouldn't be surprised, if you're prepared to spend the money, there probably is a year-round supply.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, if you're a Michelin-starred restaurant charging $70 for just a starter plate with some asparagus on, yeah, I bet they can get it.
But
whenever they like.
We're back to being able to appreciate it because it's expensive. That's in a way. But yeah, you're right. We have an overabundance of choice, basically.
Which in some ways is great. Yeah, I mean, it does.
Yeah.
I think that although if you try and make a decision about getting something, that's always the thing I find sort of hard, and then you kind of end up, you're kind of thinking, right, should I get that? Because that would make a good project, but I should only get one thing. But then there's that, and that's a good price at the moment. And then there's that, and that's not normal. Raspberry Pis, they're not readily available at the moment, and you think, maybe I should get that, and then you kind of go, but actually, I really wanted to do that one, and then you kind of look back, and then all three have disappeared because you spent so long doing it. They're all out of stock.
Yeah, that's. I think when you started that example, I was thinking about the supermarket still. So, but it makes a lot of sense in the maker realm.
That's where you need the impulsivity, one-click ordering. They're in stock.
Yeah.
Click. What am I going to use it for? I have no idea.
I'll find out.
Yeah, I'll think of something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd get in trouble if I did that. I used to do it too often.
Yeah.
Like, what else have you got delivered?
That's the benefit of opening the door for the parcels, isn't it? You can.
The trick is to bolster the amount of packages with things for the family, for the kids, and so the amount of stuff you ordered isn't that obvious. I would imagine.
Theoretically speaking, yes, of course.
Yeah. Just as a thought experiment.
Yeah, I've bought quite a few books lately. Most of them secondhand, so much cheaper. But I was before the recording. I was looking for a corded mouse to go with this laptop, and it was like, it's got to here somewhere, but I think it might be hidden behind some books.
Right.
Worst places to hide.
Maybe yes, it's quite like that. I quite like to hide behind some books myself. The idea of getting lost in a bookshop is there's food.
There's a wonderful bookshop I need to take you to in Bristol, Andy, because you could very easily get lost in it.
Well, as a kid, we used to regularly go to Hay on Wye. I don't, Dominic, you probably don't know about Hay on Wye.
Doesn't ring a bell.
It's
you just made some noises to him.
It's the borders of Wales and England, bit not far from Hereford. and it's the home to I don't know what the numbers would be now. Pretty much every other shop, and in some parts of it, every shop is a bookshop. There are kind of some gift shops and some kind of conventional hardware stores and food stores, but pretty much there are dozens and dozens of bookshops. Most of them secondhand. Some of them, there's one that's a converted. It's an old cinema, probably a single screen cinema, but the entire place is just full of books. It must have millions of books.
Do they stack them in front of the big screen, or are there shelves?
Oh, shelves. I think the screens went decades ago. It's just there's just so many books. It's just such an amazing place to kind of go if you like secondhand books. It's just kind of one of those
Sounds like
places.
a great place.
Oh, it is. It's fantastic. They have a literary festival every year as well. Lots of authors turn up, and
you mean they literally have a festival?
They literally have a festival about literature. So it's
Are these shops, are they specialized? Or do they all offer everything, or is there
some are specialized? So there's some that are sort of antiquarian. There are some that specialize in
I mustn't go there.
Particular genre of books. Most of them are just there's everything, but there are a few that are specialist.
I think these would be a case where if I went there, I'd go, that's a pretty book to have on the shelf, or that looks awesome. But so behind on reading, probably wouldn't need to go there. But what does that have to do with anything?
I'm just wondering if I get free books by walking in.
Being a reader, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is everyone turns up as a reader. Yeah.
That's true. That's true.
I came across a term the other day, and I can't remember what it is now. I'll have to dig it out and put it in the show notes. It was on somebody's Twitter bio, and it was a phrase that I didn't recognize.
Too late.
And I looked it up. I was like, yeah, what did they call themselves? They were experienced, whatever the word was. And I kind of, what on earth is that? Looked it up, and basically it's the Japanese word for having bought more books than you can possibly read. I was just like, yeah, I'll
term.
take that.
Yeah, you qualify, Andy.
Yeah.
That's something I envy my wife for. She can sit down with a book, and she's gone, and I think she takes at best, if the stars align, she can do 1,000 pages in 3 days.
I used to be able to do that, but then I had family.
Yeah.
And I think the only time I've done that since is when I've been too ill to do anything other than read.
My wife can still switch off and put on the whatever those are called for horses, the blinds. Blinkers. Okay, sorry. She can put those on, and the kids around them need to address her a couple of times before she reacts. That's something I've never managed. I've always had one ear in radar mode. Any kids?
Yeah, same. I think the only way I'd be able to consume 1,000-page book in 3 days is if I was really hungry and there was no other food around. It's the only way that's going in that quickly.
When you mentioned bookshops, my mind went to libraries where you can actually. I don't know about your bookshops, but you can sit down. You're allowed to sit down and read a book in a library as opposed to a bookshop, I think. Or that's my understanding.
You can, yeah.
And I've always thought going to a library for all day and just sit there and read, that would be great. I'd love to do that, but I know I'll never do it. The family, the attention, and also I want to make stuff. So, yeah, that's.
Well, that's a good call to not have to do that. It's interesting. The first time I ever went in, there's a range of bookstores in the UK called Waterstones, kind of one of the biggest sort of booksellers in the UK now. And the first time I ever went into a Waterstones bookshop, it was my first year of university, and I went in, and the shop wasn't very big. It was probably only sort of 10, 12 meters wide. So it was quite a narrow sort of little shop. It was packed with books. It was just like a bookshop, and it was like, yeah, I like this place. Lots of books.
Like they're supposed to.
And then I kind of noticed that there was this set of stairs, and it was like, ooh. So I went up this set of stairs, and then the first floor was, there were only 2 floors. There was this sort of ground floor that was kind of 10, 12 meters wide, probably 20, 25 meters long. But then when you went up the stairs, and it went over multiple shops sideways. So it was probably sort of 75 meters by 75 meters. And it was just like, oh, and it was like, downstairs were all like the bestsellers, all the things that kind of be on the New Yorker list and whatever. And you went upstairs, it was kind of all the reference books. So it was just like, and there was a section for the kids in one corner. And it was just like, and then I noticed that there were chairs and sofas, and people were literally taking the books on. They were reading the books. I was thinking, like, it's not like it's like going into a supermarket and eating the food before you bought it.
I can't help.
Plenty of people do that.
Yeah.
I can't help but think that there has to be a good slogan in there with Waterstone and sharpening the mind.
Ooh. Yeah,
I like it.
Might be lost on anyone apart from makers and woodworkers.
Yeah, true. And but some might complain that it's called a whetstone, not a waterstone. But yeah.
What do you? I mean, yeah, Japanese waterstones. They are called waterstones rather than whetstones.
Good point. Yeah.
Again, I think there's that
you
kind
need an oil stones and a diamond plates. There's the 3 shops in a row.
Diamond plates for your crockery. Yeah. I'm not sure what would the oil stones sell. Yeah.
Just the same stuff as Waterstones, but just slightly more hipster.
You get a special finish to coat your books with.
Yeah, cold pressed virgin olive oil. Yeah.
I wonder if that would make the book Jamie ate more healthy.
Might make it go down a bit easier.
On that kind of street of fictional shops, and obviously the one non-fictional shop, you'd have to have one just purely for the kind of middle-aged sort of dudes that's just tall mechs. That one for dudes that just like to turn round and round and round.
I just had a thought about a shop dedicated to cookbooks, and instead of sitting down and reading them, you go to a little stove and you cook the recipes.
That'd be cool. Like a convenience store crossed with a bookstore, crossed with a little place to cook.
And probably a small fire department, just in case.
Yeah. Community service.
I think that'd be quite cool. Yeah, some big name chef decides they're going to sell a book, and then they have to do a book tour, and then they go around, and every bookshop they go to, they cook one of the recipes.
Yeah, that would
be a different recipe in every store.
They just have to cook enough for everyone who's in attendance.
Yeah, they could do it by ticket. So they didn't get everyone turning up off the street when they realised somebody was cooking. But
and instead of signing autographs in their books, they take a little bit of stew and
greasy thumbprint.
Yeah, lasts longer.
Did he write?
Oh, yeah.
It sounds like an old like blues singer or something. Greasy Thumbprint.
Yeah, it does. Oh man.
Oh my word! Yeah. Did he play fingerstyle guitar? Yeah.
Mm.
Oh my word!
Then again, in music shop, that holds true. You can go in, take a guitar, and if you can play it. So,
But no stairway.
I think that's a nice thing. I think that's a nice thing when people can do that. Yeah, a few times I've been into music shops and they kind of there is somebody playing. I like that.
It can be good, but it can be very not good as well.
Yeah,
I can imagine for the people working there, yeah, particularly.
And you won't remember the times where the people who played weren't good. You just don't. But it comes back to it's basically making. You need to practice. You need to get in the reps, and just like handling a table saw takes practice, so does shredding a guitar.
Yeah, and if you're not careful, you can shred your fingers, but not maybe quite the same extent.
It takes more effort to lose a finger when playing guitar, I think. I don't know, but I think.
It's sort of looping around to cooking again as well, isn't it, with shredding, things like cheese and stuff like that.
On a guitar?
Well, I wish you could.
Well, it'd be like a mandolin,
it'd be as great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure there's some videos out there of people doing that. Yeah, if you mess those two up, it's probably not that good for your fingers.
Definitely not.
And they probably are. You're right. There's videos about most things, apparently, aren't they? YouTube's got pretty wide coverage of things.
And if you add Instagram Reels, Shorts, TikTok, and such, there are basically videos for everything. Come to think of it, wasn't there a trend a while back of people putting nails down and then hammering them, some kind of accuracy thing? I don't really remember what basically the gist of the videos, but
I've seen a few of those over the years where people kind of go, right, okay, well, how many strikes to get a 6-inch nail into an 8-inch beam, or you have 10 of them, and
not like that. More as a mix of strength and accuracy thing. You have a number of nails, and
like with a cross-pin hammer and things like that.
Yeah,
or like they'll flip a framing hammer and then smack a nail in.
Yeah, that always made me wonder whether those are edited or how many attempts they had to go through. But it's nice to look at.
Throwing the ping pong ball and that they throw the ping pong ball and it bounces around 15 different surfaces and the skateboard that rolls past and then lands perfectly in the cup.
Yeah.
And then you find out that it's taken them 327 million attempts to do it over the course of 6 months.
But that's dedication, on the other hand. More so than just editing it.
Yeah.
And some of them are edited as well. Yeah.
There's a lot of parallels between dedication and lunacy.
There's a difference?
I think it depends what you're dedicated to.
Trade-off, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I think of some of the sort of great makers of the past. Some of them fairly lunatic. Some of the famous painters and sculptors and.
Yeah. Although
Da Vinci.
I tend to wonder: is it just let's say the interesting ones, those with a higher degree of lunacy that stick in the mind, as opposed to those, a few nice pictures but not a story to tell about the person?
I think there's an element of that, but also there's an element of perhaps they were rich enough that their things got kept, or they were I was listening to something this afternoon actually on a podcast, and they were talking about kind of how sometimes the famous artists aren't necessarily the best artists, but they're good business people. So they're actually maybe only fairly mediocre,
Marketers.
but they're good at
Best
marketing.
publicity. That's this thing about the what was it called? The great filter was something different, but the same thing when you think about, let's say, the 80s. They had such great music back then. The bad music just didn't make it this far. So
Yeah,
you only remember the good bits. That's probably the same with art. Although you also have the great bits that didn't make it because nobody listened to them back then, or looked at them in case of pictures.
things weren't
Paintings.
able to be shared in the same way that they are now. But I think if there is that element of you get people sort of saying, "Oh, things were better in the old days," and they forget about they forget about actually. Well, yeah, but child mortality was higher, and
Plumbing.
you get in the maker in sort of some of the maker groups, particularly on Facebook, where somebody kind of posts something that's a little bit dangerous, and somebody goes, "Yeah, that's perfectly fine. That's the way we used to do it before the health and safety
Natural
regulations."
selection.
Yeah, they forget that actually, people used to die of stuff like that quite regularly, and it doesn't happen quite
Survivor
so
bias,
often
isn't it?
anymore. Yes.
Yeah. We were in this kind of outdoor museums where they took farmhouses from all over and took them down, took meticulous note how they were set up and put them back together in that place. And seeing those old houses where people lived without indoor plumbing, sometimes without electricity. I think there was one middle of the last century. They didn't have. There was I think an old couple living there still. No electricity, no indoor plumbing. They were still using the chamber pot, and I think it's easy to romanticize that until you remember the smell. So have to go in the night, and
outside toilets aren't fun in the winter.
No, they're not. That's I think that's those people romanticizing either the past or hand tools or whatever. There's always a side they're conveniently ignoring.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Trying to remember, I think it was. It doesn't matter for the point, but there was an episode of Supernatural where they travel back in time to the Wild West, and they did an interesting depiction of dental hygiene at that time. So you have someone smiling and all cavities and such, and I think that's also something that often gets ignored. And yes, you have those cases where, I mean, people who have replacement teeth, but I think you had to be pretty rich to afford that. So that's it's also a deep rabbit hole to go into. You probably don't want to get into.
Yeah, I mean, the three of us are all sat here wearing glasses, and it's things
Good
like
point.
that, And I know Andy and I are only able to sort of stand up through medical intervention and things like that. So
yeah, I
we'd
mean,
have been on the scrappy years ago.
Thinking about it this way, I think I'd probably most likely died of appendicitis, or what's that called? The
peritonitis.
Appendix. Yeah. The couple more cases in the family which kind of caught me off guard when someone told me they had I knew they were in intensive care for a while and had an operation, but to think 50 years ago they would have died. That back then kind of hit me. Hit my self-image of the time we live in rather hard.
Yeah, it's crazy to think how rapidly the pace of advancement is going now compared to 50 years ago. And even then, that was such a rapid pace of advancement compared to the 50 years before it.
I mean, if your kid has a fever, I mean, after a few times you are pretty chill about it. But if it gets worse, you have a selection of medicines. You have a doctor in, let's say, driving distance. You have a good system of those cars that take sick people to the hospital.
Ambulances.
Yes, those. Yeah.
Yeah,
That was something that.
Krankenwagen?
Yeah.
I was trying to remember that as well.
There's also the Bavarian word for it, which is Sanka. And don't ask me where that comes from, but it's fun here. But that was something that it didn't really scare me, but it added to some kind of overall anxiety during the pandemic when they said the hospitals are full. So basically, if you're not actively dying, you have no business going there.
Try to avoid them, yes. And
Yeah.
try not to do anything that requires you to end up visiting one.
That's also kind of a dent in this veneer of modern life. Things we take for granted.
I think we do. I think there's a lot of that, and I probably don't want to end up sort of chatting about this too much because we'll end up sort of discussing some of the elements of society that maybe don't think things are as they once were, and
let's keep it light. We've already gone down several rabbit holes so far this evening.
I mean, we have alienated the almost complete audience, so who's left can probably take it.
I think the cultists are left. We haven't talked about the cultists.
No, we haven't. I don't know where that came from. Yeah, true, we haven't.
I'd like to know when the cultists first appeared. Yeah, was it as a result of some sort of summoning, or was it kind of did they just drift into your workshop? Or?
Do you want the long version? I think you do. Basically, it started by me turning OSB. I glued some layers of OSB together, and I think the first thing I turned was, I haven't done one of those in a while, it was a tea light holder. And I thought this shape looks like a planet, like a gas giant. So next project I made was the solar system as OSB planets. Because I think they have a nice way of taking paint and such. And for some reason, my mind went to this idea of there's a cult. They just popped up. Maybe they were there before. And they hired me to make the planets align for a ritual. And back then, I was keeping bees near a small forest, and there was a stone in there in a clearing that pretty much looked like a ritual stone, if you have a inclination for these things. And I took an old what was it? The things you have in front of windows, that curtain, an old curtain, and of course I didn't, the cult did, but I don't know where it went. But threw it over myself and did I think back then it was 4 cultists, because I stood around that stone 4 times and then cut it together. But I think the idea of the different voices just came organically, and they've been with me ever since. And I'm trying not to. I think it would get tricky to interview them right now, but if you want to.
No, we'll maybe leave that for another time. Yeah,
but I should add that I don't know if I have a thing for it, but I love doing voices in general. I've been, just before the podcast, I've been reading to my kids with voices, and one admits that she likes it, and the other I have evidence that she likes it, but she doesn't admit to it. But yeah, and also when role-playing pen and paper, Dungeons and Dragons, that I think it comes in handy, and I think my players just they nod, they accept it.
I like that. I used to use voices with reading to my kids when they were small. But then they do things like go, "That wasn't the voice you used last time for that character." Like, I need to try and remember what voice you
Get it
used.
right, Dad. Come on.
You need to have a good system. You need to write them down.
Oh, that would require quite a bit of organisation,
Yeah,
forward planning, and a bit late for that now.
Yeah, that's where the role playing comes in. You develop kind of a shorthand for which NPC is which voice. That's just one thing that kind of gets lost, I think, when reading. Sometimes in a book you have there's a voice and you don't know who it is, and a couple of pages later you get the reveal that was that person all along. When you do voices and you want to do them thoroughly, that kind of gets lost in translation.
I find that so frustrating in a book where you've got kind of maybe a page or two of conversation, and the author hasn't put in enough clues to kind of who was speaking, or I've missed it, and you kind of then get to the end, you go, "Oh, I'm gonna have to go back and reread that because it was the other way round."
Yeah,
I don't like that.
Yeah, always get looks when I get the wrong voice in a long dialogue, and dead problems.
So I'm curious. You said you kind of found this kind of altar-like rock in the middle of the woods. I mean, is this kind of a private woods, or I can just imagine, you're there, or the cultists are there, and people walk by, members of the public, and kind of go, "What's going on?"
At that point, there weren't any members of the public, at least none that made themselves known to me. It's perfectly possible that they turned tail and ran as soon as they saw the cultists. But I don't know how to describe it. It's a rather rural area, and there are ways, hiking ways basically through the forest, but in that case, you have two ways, and then you went into the forest to get to that clearing. It's not a public clearing, if you will. You can go there if you want, but
so it's off the beaten track.
Yeah, a little bit, but it's you go 10 meters off the track, and they might still see you, but there also aren't too many hikers out there at any given time.
I think that could be so funny, though.
Yeah, basically to explain to someone what you're doing here, and to I think it would be easier to say, yes, I'm conducting a satanic ritual, and they'd just go and leave, as opposed to explaining that you're doing YouTube videos about woodworking.
I just leave it for people to find out. That's a them problem.
True.
Where could they find that, though? Where could they meet the cultists?
That's sneaky. I think the cultists are still working on their web presence. They are in dire need of money, but they can, if they really want to, be inspired with Dominic.com/find me. I think find. Yeah, I should have prepared that better. The cultists probably would have. Yes, it's find-me, and that's where you can find all the things I do, but also the cultists, because they're the most important thing I do. Yes, we are. But there are also other things. There's something about cooking, which I haven't gotten to in a while, and something about role-playing supplements, which I have a long list that I want to write, but I usually get 2/3 through a project, and then it sits there. At least with the thing is, with with
That seems very
woodworking
familiar.
projects, I have a box where it sits in, and at some point I need the space that the box takes up. So I'll take the box and throw it out. That's that hasn't happened yet, but it might. Or I try to finish the project or find another place for it. But on a computer you can have pages upon pages of half-baked stuff, and you never get anything done. And you have no incentive to get it done.
I absolutely feel that so deeply.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not going to comment on that one at all. Yeah.
Yeah.
As we record this, it's for those who are watching or listening. We're recording this literally the less than 24 hours after. Well, it's now actually just crossing over into sort of 24 hours since we recorded the episode with Dean Duplantis. So I suspect that, well, my attention grabbing hasn't really changed. I've spent far too long this morning looking at leather goods after my leather making course yesterday. Jamie has been at work most of the day, I'm sure. And
Yeah, mine has been medicating.
Yeah. So our attention grab probably changed. Dominic, what's been grabbing your attention lately? Have you got something you've been working on, or you working towards, or reading, or watching, or anything at all that's grabbed your attention?
Okay. The first thing that came to mind, although I have basically no relation to it, that's been grabbing my attention on Instagram is a hedgehog station. It's, I think, one hour by car away from here, and they're taking in basically underfed or sick hedgehogs, and they nurse them back to health and release them back into the wild. And I never knew how much of a problem that is. But also, basically, hedgehogs that don't get too much food, get enough food, or that are injured in some way, and that's they're basically, what's the word for someone doing it out of the goodness of their heart without getting money for it?
Charity.
Charity,
Volunteer,
yes.
Yeah.
Thanks for being my dictionary today.
Hey, it's okay. Your English
You were
is
our German dictionary.
a million times better than our German. I think that's Jimmy and I both kind of work through Duolingo, but I think we're
32-day streak so far.
Level.
Congrats.
I'm not sure. I haven't done mine today, actually. I'm sure I've probably got a message on my phone saying I should be doing it. Yeah, 149 days. Although there's a couple of streak freezes in that.
That's fair.
Yeah,
absolutely. Hedgehogs is such a wonderful thing to be saving, a wonderful charity to be behind and stuff. We've got a few that come and hide away in our garden. We've got little, kind of places to keep them safe and stuff from surrounding dogs and cats and stuff in the neighbours' yards and stuff. Gorgeous animals.
Recently made basically a small house for them to sleep in, or to another one for basically to feed them. The thing is, the first time I took off the lid and the food was gone. The food was gone. Then I realized there were two small holes in the ground where I believe mice dug up and got to the food. So I need to do something.
At least something
about
was fed and something appreciated.
Yeah, yeah. Although I'd rather feed hedgehogs than mice.
Yeah, that's fair.
By comparison. But what got me recently, it's a tangent, but I hope that's okay. Yeah, they posted about. I mean, they're offering basically to, on the one hand, educate people about how to handle and treat a hedgehog. There are some things, some rumors, basically, if you find a hedgehog, feed it this or give it milk, and there are some that will, in a matter of days, kill the hedgehog.
Yeah.
So they're putting out information. Yeah, and they're offering all this information. They're offering to help to take care of these hedgehogs, but they're basically swamped. And they posted about how people when they tell people, sorry, we are full, we have to adhere to some basic guidelines and laws, and we can't take any more hedgehogs. And there are people on the phone who will then, well, basically unload on them for not caring for hedgehogs. And if they don't take the hedgehog, they'll just kill it with a shovel. That was a quote that they posted, and that got me thinking. First, I didn't know that this was a problem, hedgehogs, but then even there you got the, well, I wouldn't even call those trolls. They're just, am I allowed to say shitheads? We can just edit that out later.
No? Yeah, that's fine. No,
Okay, but
Good editing, Andy.
this.
I mean, that's not enough. We've had worse.
Okay, but I mean, it's. I think
People.
what gets me about these,
People can be horrible.
Yeah, I mean, in role-playing games, as a game master, I play the evil guy and I try to make them bad and threatening. But that's the level these comments go to still astounds me. I mean, if I want to take over the world, okay, then I get to say mean stuff. But about a hedgehog,
the cruelty of real people is fathomless.
Yeah,
problem, a big problem.
Yeah, the casual cruelty in a way.
Yeah. On that happy note.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm sure. I mean, there must be something. Yeah, you got to have something that's cheerier than that. Well, obviously, yeah. What have you got? Something else?
People
Quickly
are inherently good, and people are
Yes.
doing things voluntarily to try and help hedgehogs and other animals. That is a good thing.
I mean, you can edit this out if you think it's not as cheerful as Jamie's closing remarks, if they were that. I think I got the email about the Trinket trade today. So that's the Fools with Tools Trinket trade, formerly known as the Fools with Tools treasure trade, which is a mouthful. But I'm kind of looking forward to that, and I think that's some kind of making positivity spread in the world.
And that's exactly what that's about.
That.
Yeah. And the treasure trade will be back in the spring, late spring, early summer. So just trying to get that away from the bigger builds, away from kind of the busy time of year for a lot of makers who are doing craft fairs and things. So Trinket trade.
Maybe you can then lean more into the treasure aspect and have people bury it somewhere for others to dig up.
There's
just
a thought.
As a thought.
Although by the time anyone's listening to this, other than us, of course, the sign up for the Trinket trade will be done. And
it will, and hopefully we'll have all got our.
The names will be out. So who you've got?
So, question is: was that a positive note, or was it a negative and mean one?
Ooh, the names will be out. That's positive.
Tease, at least.
Yes.
Yeah,
that's true.
Yes.
Yeah.
On that note, let's say goodbye to folks.
Thank you very much for joining us, Dominic.
It's been nice to chat.
It's been a pleasure.
I'm sure we'll chat again.
I hope so. It was fun. Cool. Although I think we should have crammed more dead jokes in there.
Yeah, that'll be for episode 2.
But
the redo.
Yeah. Overall, I think we nailed it.
Yeah, let's call back.
Bye, folks. I'm hitting that button there.
Yeah, goodbye, folks.
Bye.